So, hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ad Project Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joe Kelly from Ad Advance. And today I'm really excited to have Jeremy Bugby from our team join the podcast. So, Jeremy, welcome.
Hey, Joe. Thanks a lot. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So, Jeremy is actually our business development lead. So, he gets to talk to a lot of people who are looking to potentially hire us on. And so, he also gets to screen a ton of different accounts that are coming in. And when we're screening, really what we're doing is we're looking for opportunity. And there's many cases where, we'll look at them and either we identify a lot of opportunity and we're really open and honest about that, or there's cases where we come in and what's already being done is looking really good. And so our key goal for this podcast is to really talk through what's some major opportunities that we see from Jeremy's perspective, since he gets to see hundreds of accounts overall. So what's the common threads that we see coming in? So Jeremy, for those who aren't familiar with you, maybe give us a quick overview, like how you joined Ad Advance.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of a long story. I had the pleasure of working with Joe and Matt at a former job, a local oil and gas company in a prior life. Worked really closely with Matt, our COO. Matt and I had a very similar position. We were financial analysts working for the oil and gas company, and that role as a financial analyst really set me up well for a job here at Advance in terms of being able to navigate large sums of data, look for patterns, things like that. So the transition was really smooth in terms of being able to come in and pick up the skill set right away. New to the digital marketing scene, but was able to pick that up pretty quickly. But really, that's kind of how I got my foot in the door here was really working with the two of you in my previous role at Enbridge.
Yeah, and so Jeremy started as an account exec, working directly with clients, just like Kylie, who was just on the show, and then has transitioned now working on a lot of the incoming clients and working through identifying opportunities, making sure that we're a good fit, and just going through that whole process as we go. So, Jeremy, just kind of framing it up, let's talk through some big opportunities that you see. You get to review a ton of accounts as you go. So, what's some major pieces or consistent patterns that you see in accounts that you're reviewing?
Yeah, for sure. So there's definitely a pattern of things that we see and that we look for, and a lot of accounts that we're reviewing. And like Joe said here, we're looking for opportunities where we can come in and add value. For us, it's not just a matter of bringing in as many clients as we can. We want to make sure that we're adding value, and that it makes sense for these clients to join us. So, I really kind of took a look at this opportunity to have this conversation with you today and tried to bucketize things into really three big categories where we're seeing significant opportunities. So we'll kind of walk through each one of those. So the first one is placement optimization. Oftentimes that's something that is maybe misunderstood or overlooked. It's amazing the power of an appropriately set bid combined with the placement settings. And when I'm talking about placement settings, I'm talking about the bid modifiers, such as the top of search product placements and the rest of search ad placements.
Found in sponsored products
primarily found in sponsored products.
But when you're talking through this, kind of more focused on the sponsored products.
Yes, absolutely. And so what I often find is that it's a very underutilized feature, meaning that, it's not utilized in as many of the campaigns as it should be, or, maybe it's utilized and they're using a very small boost. What we find is that top of search typically converts roughly 2 times better than most other ad placements. So for us, what we're looking for is really high utilization. We love to see the utilization in the sponsored products campaign types around 100%, and we also like to see a meaningful boost. Somewhere between maybe 60 to 80%, really dependent on what the goals and objectives are and what kind of results we're seeing in the marketplace. So like I said, oftentimes we jump in there and that's very underutilized, and there's a lot of power in that appropriately set bid combined with a bidding by placement modifier.
Yeah. And so this is a key one. It's just like bid optimization, but just optimizing at the campaign level for where your placements are showing up. And like Jeremy was saying, we recently did an analysis looking at the conversion rates between these different placements, between top of search, product page, and rest of search. And it was actually over 2 times more, over 2 times higher conversion rate for top of search compared to the other ones. And so I know a lot of people look at top of search and they say, well, it costs a lot more. And that's definitely true. But what we're looking at is we're trying to find the highest value based off of the placements or based off of the performance for these different ad types. And what we're consistently seeing is that even though top of search costs more, overall, its performance is justifying that and is actually underbid per its performance. And so if you're not using placement adjustments, you're definitely leaving some opportunity on the table. And really the key thing that you need to do is it's just opening up the placement settings, looking at how your performance is, and then maybe providing a boost to those placements that are looking good. And so it doesn't really have to get complex. That's really what we're doing. We have a lot more detailed like algorithms that are going in the back end, looking at shorter and long-term durations and all these other pieces. What's the strategy that ties into those campaigns? But in general, really what you need to do is just look at the placements and then make those adjustments based off of performance overall.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And like Joe said, we do utilize our system a little bit to help us. We're setting baselines, making minor adjustments. We're definitely leaning on the system to help us set appropriate bids, combined with those bidding by placements based on our clients' goals and objectives, ACoS targets, and those kind of things. But again, at a high level, this is something that I see very underutilized and most likely slightly misunderstood, in many instances.
Sure. Yep. And just giving a little caveat there, as we're looking at placement adjustments, it's definitely strategy dependent too. So how we treat placement adjustments for a ranking campaign is going to look much different than like a brand defense campaign or a catch-all campaign. These all have different strategies and goals, but in almost all cases, we're still utilizing placement adjustments. Just how we're treating them are differently.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. We kind of make generalizations, and there's obviously caveats with almost everything when it comes to Amazon advertising. So that's a good point to make that, each campaign type is very strategy dependent, and how we utilize these placement settings are dependent on each of those campaign type strategies.
So takeaway 1 is definitely review your placement adjustments. So just go into your sponsored products campaigns, click into the placements, and then just make sure you've got adjustments. And if you don't, as long as performance is performing better in one placement versus another, definitely utilize those placement adjustments. Easy adjustment, definitely high value. For sure. So what's number 2 that you typically see when reviewing campaigns?
We really love to utilize a full funnel structure where we are harvesting good converting targets, search terms, product targets from an auto campaign that we love to set up as a true discovery campaign. And oftentimes what I find when I jump into a client account to do a review is that there's a lot of good converting targets that are missing as standalone targets in manual sponsored product campaigns, for example. So, creating a full funnel campaign structure really helps improve performance. To walk through the process a little bit, like I mentioned, we love to create an auto campaign to keep that set up as a true discovery campaign. We have a downstream manual campaign that we love to funnel those good converting targets into. We then set negatives at the auto campaign level to keep that auto campaign continuously running more and more efficient as a true discovery campaign. We also have the ability for product targets, as we see product targets continue to convert well, to systematically funnel those down to sponsored display product targeting campaigns. So what we find oftentimes is that there's really good converting targets that are outpacing the overall performance in the account, that are missing as standalone targets, either in those manual campaigns or those sponsored display product targeting campaigns. And if we move those down and funnel them, we can place a lot of more control, a lot of emphasis, and oftentimes boost the efficiency of them. So it is amazing how many times I see, a huge number of targets that should be moved down the funnel to, again, improve the efficiency and essentially kind of squeeze as much juice out of them as we can.
Yeah. And the key reason we want to do this is anytime we move, and when we talk about targets, we're talking about keywords or product targets. Anytime we see a solid performing keyword or product target further up in the funnel, what we want to do is we want to move it down, meaning we just want to get more control over that keyword or that product target, so then we can better tune that to get the best performance overall. Again, based off of the strategy that we have set for those campaigns. So for this one, when we're talking about a general funnel structure, and if you want to learn more about that, Matt and I did a couple full episodes pretty early on in the podcast, so feel free to check those out. But really what we're doing is we're just reviewing performance, and then we want to move these targets downstream. So sponsored products, let's keep moving them so they're more and more controlled in sponsored products. But then like Jeremy said too, I think another real underutilized piece is being able to cross-utilize this information between the different ad types. We don't see that very often. So like sponsored display product targeting campaigns, if we have product targets that are doing great in sponsored products, like let's move them to sponsored display. It doesn't get as much volume, but it definitely adds. And there's a lot of sales that you could be leaving on the table if you don't cross-utilize these product targets. So when we're looking at an account, we're doing a systematic review to say, all right, you've got these search terms, meaning keywords or product targets that maybe are still living in auto campaigns, but should be moved downstream. And not only should they be moved downstream, but let's share them across the different ad types. So then we can even get more sales and more traction from those exact same targets as we go. So, that's the key thing that we're looking at. And we constantly see that underutilized too.
Yeah, absolutely. And we all know that, Amazon moves fast. Competition is coming and going. Listings are getting shut down. Listings are being shut down for whatever reason. So staying on top of the most relevant targets, staying on top of how people, customers are search, finding, and buying your product, and that those things are always evolving and always changing. So to stay on top of that, and then systematically move those down the funnel, where we can place control and emphasis on them, is an ongoing and iterative process that you always want to try to stay on top of. So and like to Joe's point too, when we take a look at sponsored brand campaigns, when we see good converting search terms, in the sponsored products, the primary campaign funnel that we have there, we also want to make sure that we cross-utilize those in our targeting them, for example, in sponsored brand campaigns as well. So, yeah, good point.
And so sponsored products, typically, like if we look at the different sponsored ad types, typically it's going to be about net 70, 80% of the ad spend overall. As they develop more and more ad types and we get sponsored brand and video and more sponsored display, it's continually shifting a bit away from sponsored products. But sponsored products is still going to be the majority of your spend for many cases. And so being able to cross-utilize that data and then implement it in these new ad types as you go, another great way to expand sales with keywords or product targets that you already know work well.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was number 2. So really looking at your campaign funnel structure, and if you have any good converters, making sure you're, 1, moving them downstream to get as much control as you can, and then 2, sharing them across different ad types. So that's our second big opportunity. So what's number 3?
Number 3 is most likely the most unexciting and maybe perhaps least sexy. But I like to bucketize the two pieces together between kind of ongoing bid optimization and the mitigation of unproductive spend. So one thing that we look at when we jump into an account and are doing a review is the opportunity for us to clean up unproductive spend. If you're running PPC campaigns, you're always going to have some level of unproductive spend. But what we try to do is we try to mitigate as much of that as possible and push that unproductive spend to where we're seeing good conversions.
When you talk about unproductive spend, like what does that mean or what does that look like?
Sure. When we talk about unproductive spend, it's really when you're getting clicks and spending on those clicks and not seeing conversions. Now, some of that can be discovery spend where you're testing and things like that. But we like to try to establish a baseline based on where your products kind of typically convert. How many clicks does it take to usually get a sale? So when we're looking at unproductive spend, we're looking at those outliers that have significant number of clicks above your average conversion rate and are just not converting, so that is kind of what we consider unproductive spend. But again, some of that can be unproductive spend. And that's why I kind of threw that caveat out there initially, saying that you're never going to mitigate away all of your unproductive spend. But what we try to do is we try to reduce that and mitigate it the best that we can and push it to where we're seeing the best conversions.
And one key piece that Jeremy just hit on, and we get this question quite a bit, is, all right, if I'm setting negative keywords or I'm trying to weed out some of this unproductive spend, how do I know what to weed out and what not to? And taking the conversion rate approach is definitely the right way to go. And so, if I have a 10% conversion rate, so 1 out of 10 clicks should convert. If I get to 12 clicks without a conversion, it's still tough to be able to say that next click isn't going to convert, because statistically, things can change. You could end up with 15 clicks in a row and then have 3 sales in a row. And so what we do is we add a bit of a buffer there from a systematic approach using conversion rate to be able to figure out, okay, what's the major keywords that we should be weeding out. But then going along with that too, there's intuition. There's the numbers, and then there's the human aspects. And there's many keywords and product targets that we can go through, and we can just say, okay, that's definitely not relevant. Like, let's screen it out. I'll get some purists who will say, no, you have to wait till the data tells you to weed it out. But I mean, if that's the case, we should automate everything. And Jeremy, I think we're in agreement that we should not automate everything.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. You have to use some intuition, and use some of your gut feelings. And a lot of our clients, they know their products and in and outs of the category, especially in the early stages of our partnership than we do. So we can bring these things to their attention, but then we have a real meaningful dialogue and understand the category, their products, and oftentimes, with that collaboration and communication, we can say, you know what? No, we don't need to pause or negate these. We can do some optimization here, and we can get these keywords or targets to perform better than they have been.
So that's the unproductive spend piece. And then let's talk through like bid optimization.
So I kind of bucketize these
and by the way,
pieces together.
I love bucketize. I think you just
bucketize.
You
just created a new term. I kind of put these two in the same bucket.
No, stick with bucketize.
Bucketize. So bid optimizations and unproductive spend, because they kind of go hand in hand. And so, the thing that we obviously love to do is just ongoing bid optimization, to where we're continuously trying to improve your ad spend efficiency. I would say 90% of our clients are in this balanced cost control, maximize sales mode, where we're trying to find that inflection point where we push any harder with PPC and the cost is going to rise. So we're always trying to find that balancing point. And so with ongoing bid optimization, really what we're looking at is those outliers. We're looking at outliers where we're maybe bid a little bit aggressively compared to what we're seeing in the marketplace for CPCs, and our cost is higher than target. And conversely, we're taking a look at where targets are performing really favorable in terms of our cost target, but our bids are set at a discount to what we're seeing in the marketplace. And when I jump into client accounts, it's amazing how many targets that I find on both ends of that spectrum. And again, we talked previously about bidding by placement percentages or placement modifiers. So, those can really compound and make things a little bit more complex when you add those into your appropriately set bids. So often with bid optimizations, what we're trying to do to improve your cost is take a look at those outliers where the performance isn't favorable compared to your cost, but you're still getting clicks, you're still getting conversions. The performance is there. They're producing sales volume, but how can we improve the ad spend efficiency? And again, conversely, on the other side of that spectrum, oftentimes I see a number of targets that are performing really well that are bid at a discount to the current market level CPCs. So by maybe ratcheting up our aggression a little bit there, we might see a slight increase in ACOS. But oftentimes that is offset by an improved sales volume and sales velocity. So we're kind of, again, in summary, looking at those outliers where we're maybe overbid, performance is slightly unfavorable to targets, and conversely where things are slightly underbid and performance is really well.
Yep. And we constantly get this question too, from like a bid standpoint. We get questions on, well, should I be doing my bids manually, or should I be using some sort of software for it? And it comes into both, but when I say both, from the manual perspective, it's more setting the strategy around the campaigns and then making sure that your optimization software can optimize to those strategies. And so from a bid standpoint, this is a perfect implementation for it's pure data that you can incorporate in. But there's also this intuition piece that falls into it too. For instance, like how I treat bids for a ranking strategy is going to be a lot different than how we treat them for our catch-all strategies. And so if you're for bid optimization, another huge opportunity that we see, and honestly, I'm surprised by how much opportunity we see within bid optimization because there's so many tools out there. I think one big piece is just a lot of people fit all their campaigns into a one-size-fit-all box versus being able to segment by the strategy of those campaigns and then tune the bids to match those strategies. And so personally, it feels like there's a lot of opportunity there to just kind of take one more step back and say, all right, I'm tuning these bids, but I'm tuning them for a reason. What's the key goal that I'm actually trying to achieve here? Sometimes it's an ACoS target. Other times it's ranking. Other times it's higher funnel strategies where it's much more traffic based. And so just having a good idea and starting with the strategy first, and then whatever software or tools you're using, just making sure that they can customize for those strategies are key.
Yeah, that's a great point, Joe. Thanks for bringing that out. I get caught up in some of these generalizations again, talking more about primary campaign structures and not more of those niche type strategies such as ranking or catch-alls and things like that. And you're absolutely right. Your bid strategies have to align with those campaign strategies because they can vary greatly.
But what you're saying is absolutely correct, though. A lot of the majority of the spend that we're seeing traditionally goes to more of the traditional campaign funnel structure with your general targets. And it's still amazing to me seeing how much room of opportunity there is just in optimizing the bids.
Right. Yeah, and a really common question that I get is about automated bid optimizations. People seem to either absolutely love that and say, hey, if you don't have that as an agency, we're not interested in working with you. Other folks really want the human touch and the human approach. So we definitely take that balanced approach, but we love to let our system analyze the large sets of data and help us set those appropriate bids combined with those bidding by placement percentages, and then we intervene where we can based on the results that we're seeing. So yeah, it's interesting, and I'm really happy that we have the automated bid setting process within our optimization software. I think it really helps us set bids in a much more appropriate manner, again, based on our campaign strategies than humans could, analyzing such a large amount of data. And I think the key
thing that for folks who really push back against automated bidding, probably gotten burned in the past where automated bidding did something that didn't align with what their goals were. And so it's always trying to take it a step back and making sure that the software should be a tool. Just like the service provider that you hire on should be a member of your team. Like the software should be something that works with you, not against you. And if it's not, then it's not doing what it should. And then, let's go manual if it doesn't work. But I think the key thing is really taking it back to the strategy and the objective overall. Just kind of wrapping up this one. So one question I have is, so you get to talk to a lot of people who are coming in and looking for a change in their agency, or maybe they've managed PPC themselves. What's some of the key reasons that you see people looking to make a change?
Sure. Yeah. There's a number of reasons why people are looking for a change. They've either encountered some kind of a challenge or a roadblock to their goals and objectives, or they're not happy with the level of communication and transparency. I would say most recently, the biggest thing that I'm hearing from people that are reaching out to us is that they're really looking for a strategic partner. They're looking for somebody to come to them with fresh ideas, fresh strategies, that's nimble and agile, that can pivot strategies when things are going off the rails in terms of, driving towards their goals and objectives. So I think that's number one, Joe, is that people are really looking for a strategic partner. I think the other piece of it is transparency and communication. I hear that time and time again that, yes, this agency that I'm working with, I know they're doing work. I'm getting reports. I can see what they're doing. I don't fully understand what they're doing, and the communication just isn't really there. So I think that kind of falls back to being a strategic partner, because being a strategic partner, you're communicating, you're engaged and aligning with your clients' goals and objectives. So if if I really had to boil it down, obviously performance is a huge part of it. When people see a significant downturn in performance and maybe not a pivot of strategy with their existing provider, that's a little bit of a cause concern. So if I had to put those again, like the top 3 reasons why people are reaching out to us, I think number 1, they're looking for a strategic partner. Number 2, they want an engaged and high level of communication from their provider. And then number 3, and maybe number 3 is the most important, and it's based on performance. People want to see positive performance. So I think those are really the 3 biggest things that I'm seeing.
Yep. And the focus on strategy overall totally makes sense. The Amazon advertising ecosystem and just selling on Amazon in general, and advertising in the digital advertising space for those brands who are currently using Google and Facebook and are looking at adding Amazon DSP into the mix. All those pieces, it's getting more and more complex, and it's getting more and more competitive. But at the same time, there's more and more tools that we can use to be able to set those folks apart. And so I think we're going to continue to see more people looking for that strategic partner, just because a lot of people are doing the basics pretty well, and it's being able to tie all these pieces together into those larger goals and pictures that I think is going to be so critical in the future.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely. And again, being a strategic partner is aligning with them, understanding their goals and objectives. And then when things aren't going according to plan, or there's changes in the marketplace, we're just coming off of a couple really unique years with COVID, and that we've had to pivot strategy in a number of different ways to make sure that we're efficient with ad spend, that we're driving as much sales volume as possible. So we also got to be looking ahead always at what's coming down, quarter by quarter, month by month, holidays, things like that, and how that affects our clients, and being able to pivot strategy as their strategic partner. So I agree, as complexities of Amazon advertising to continue to evolve, more and more people want that strategic partner.
Yeah. So just to recap for this, if you're looking at your campaign, so top 3 things to go review right now. Placement adjustment settings for sponsored products. Definitely go check those out. If you're not utilizing them, just look at performance. And if one is performing better than the other, typically it'll be top of search. Make sure you're adding a little boost for that. Number 2 is campaign funnel structure. So really digging through that search term report and making sure that if you have good converting keywords or product targets, that 1, you're moving them downstream, and 2, you're sharing them across the different ad types as you go. And then number 3 is just looking at, do you have any wasted spend? And looking at your bids overall. So are you underbidding some of your keywords or product targets? Are you overbidding some of them? And then making sure you're tying it back to the strategy of those campaigns as you go. So those are 3 major opportunities that we tend to see over and over and over again. So hopefully you can take away that and help to tune that up, because it can have a major impact on performance. So Jeremy, really appreciate you joining the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Joe. Again, pleasure to be here.
Yeah. And for anybody listening to the Ad Project podcast, as always, thanks for listening. If you're ever looking for like an account review or want to reach out, feel free to contact me, but you can also reach out to Jeremy too. Email is jeremy@adadvance.com. Feel free to send him a message, connect with him on LinkedIn too. As always, feel free to connect with me too. We're always trying to put out different posts and learnings and case studies and everything else like that. So connect with us. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, thanks again for listening to the Ad Project podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.